Welcome back to another episode of Fem's podcast, Outspoken. I'm Steph, one of the founders, and today we have the pleasure of hosting Kate, widely known as the Cheshire Acupuncturist. Kate is a distinguished practitioner trained in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, specialising in women's health and female fertility. Her expertise has earned her a reputation as a leading authority in acupuncture within the UK. In 2021, Kate founded the Juniper Clinic in Stockton Heath, Cheshire, now recognised as the region's leading holistic fertility centre. Under her guidance, the clinic offers comprehensive care both in Eastern and Western medical practices. Beyond her clinical practice, Kate is committed to patient education, empowering individuals to understand and maintain their health. She has authored several ebooks aimed at enhancing fertility and provides online assessments to support those navigating their journey to parenthood. Today, we'll delve into Kate's holistic approach to women's health, exploring how acupuncture and Chinese medicine can nurture fertility and ignite hope. So a big warm welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
What an introduction.
I know.
It is amazing to have you on. I know that we've done quite a lot of offline work together, and it's great to finally have you on the podcast and hear a little bit more about your journey. So thank you so much for being here today. So to kick us off, do you want to talk to us a little bit about your personal story and how you sort of landed in the acupuncture world?
Of course, yeah. It was a bit of a strange one, really. It wasn't like I was in school and I had the option to become an acupuncturist. It was kind of an organic process. So one of my family members, my grandma, was diagnosed with breast cancer in around 2012. And when I found out that news, it kind of shocked me a little bit. And I think the big C, you hear about it a lot, don't you? So I think it's a bit of an instilled fear in most people. But no one in my family had ever had cancer that we were aware of. So when I heard that someone as close as my grandma had breast cancer, it kind of made me think, you know, is this genetic? Is it something that I'm going to get? And also, is she going to be okay? So kind of from there, I'd always been interested in health, but I never really knew what I wanted to do with it. At the time, I was kind of bobbing around in different jobs, and I decided to kind of look into what could potentially help her alongside her conventional treatment. So she was going through chemotherapy, and I came across acupuncture in my search, and I ended up reading all about it, and I just really understood as much as I could, not really know much about it. I just understood the whole mind-body connection, and I thought maybe I should take her for acupuncture and just see, you know, if this will help her. And it did massively. She was getting really bad sweats and things, and her fatigue was through the roof. And after a few sessions, she was feeling so much better. So from that experience, I got really intrigued by it and read more about it and decided I wanted to retrain. And it was something for the first time in my life in a long time that I felt passionate about, and I thought this is the right thing to do. And then everything kind of aligned like it was meant to be. So there was actually somewhere about 5 minutes from where I lived at the time that specialised in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and it wasn't long. I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks after that initial scurrying on the internet looking where I could train. I'd actually signed up, and then I trained there for a few years.
Wow, quick.
Yeah. So it just kind of happened out of nowhere. One day I was just leading a normal life, doing my admin jobs, and then the next minute my grandma diagnosed with cancer, and a month or so later I'm signed up to a brand new
profession. Yeah. You hear this so much, and pretty much every single person I interview on our podcast, I hear that it's a personal experience, whether it's you know, something that you've been through personally or to a close family member, that leads people to go on and provide education, service and product. And I just have to say on that note, it's such a powerful thing that us women do, is we take a situation and it almost ripples. We have this ripple effect where we just go on to help so many other women, and it sort of takes me back to like when you're looking like tribal communities and times where it's the real community element. And I think that's just one really powerful thing about women that we do. I hear it so often. So
Yeah, woman on a mission. You can't stop a woman on a mission, can you?
you can't, you really can't. So your educational background, as you signed up to the course, and then sort of how did you progress from there?
So yeah, I signed up and the course was a few years long, and as part of the course we trained in acupuncture and food therapy, which is a whole other thing we can get to in a bit. I also trained in Tuina, which is like Chinese medical massage. I guess you can equate it kind of to like osteopathy from a Western point of view. It's not quite the same, but works in a similar way. And then when I did my original training, I did cover fertility, but it wasn't. Fertility is a really specialised area. So after doing my course, I worked in a hospice for 6 months. We did 300 clinical hours where we have to work in a clinic alongside somebody. It was quite intense. I remember having multiple meltdowns at the time because it was really, really hard. And then once I completed the course and worked in a hospice, which is another enlightening experience, I kind of fell into fertility again organically. So I was working in different clinics around the UK. I kind of got off to a very quick start, and I was offered some amazing opportunities, and I just kind of jumped in head first. So from my very first day, I was treating about 9 or 10 people, which most of the time people would be just treating like one person, two people. But it was very intense, but it's really grateful. I'm really grateful for that experience because it allowed me to learn extremely quickly what worked and what didn't work, and understanding my own errors as well. So I think I was working in 4 different clinics at the time, and I also was an in-house therapist for a training company, which was amazing for them because they got the treatment for free. As part of their working week, so they were booking with me once a week, and they'd either get the 2-hour massage, acupuncture, whatever it might be, cupping as well, that was another one. And yeah, I just learned really, really quickly, and then from there, because I was working in so many clinics, I was asked to treat fertility a lot, and at the time I was quite young and I didn't have any children at that time, and I thought I can't treat fertility because I don't feel like I don't have enough experience. And then one thing led to another, and they kind of just put fertility in with me without ever asking me again. And I learned very quickly that all the experience I'd had prior kind of set me up for that, because it's not just really treating someone to have a baby, it's treating the whole person. And their health, and obviously the baby is the icing on the cake. But for me, I'm not looking specifically, at getting a baby. I'm looking at treating the health that will allow them to get pregnant and sustain a live birth.
So it's all about being in the best. That
just grew very, very quickly, and word spread very quickly because I helped a lot of people in a very short space of time. And then from then, there was absolutely no looking back. It was just kind of what I was meant to be known for, I guess.
Yeah, incredible. And you are a powerhouse. Every time I see you or speak to you, I'm like, Kate, how do you have time? There is no stopping you.
I honestly don't have the time. It's a question I get asked a lot. I don't know. Yeah. We just do it, don't we?
We do just do it. And then sometimes we sit there and I don't know how I did that, but we do it. So if we could just unpick acupuncture. So for somebody listening that, we hear it often in the TTC community, a lot of women have it alongside their journey, especially as they're undergoing fertility treatment. But what is acupuncture?
So when somebody comes into the clinic, depending on who's sat in front of me, I will explain it in different ways. So I have the Chinese medicine way of explaining it, which is where we are working with what we call meridians, pathways, channels, same thing, just different terminology. And that is where qi and blood and energetic information flows throughout our body, and what our job to do is to regulate the flow of those pathways so that our organs can function more effectively. And then from a Western point of view, it's more working with muscle groups, neurotransmitters, regulating the nervous system. So depending on who I have in front of me and how they kind of approach life, it will depend on how I explain it. But my personal training is in Chinese medicine.
Okay. And how is it recognised in like a clinic that does IVF? You know, is it recognised? Do they treat it with the respect? Because it's a holistic approach to fertility treatment.
Yeah, for sure. When I started, I mean, even my own family said that I was doing quackery. But now it's actually well respected. I think because there's more and more research coming out and how effective it is, there is a lot more kind of open-mindedness to it. And I think when lockdown hit, a lot of people actually had to try alternative therapies because they weren't able to get the GP and things like that. So I think from that point, especially from a practitioner perspective, I think it picked up from them because people tried something they wouldn't necessarily normally try and found benefits from that.
Yeah. And where would you, if you were speaking to someone that was on a fertility journey, where does acupuncture come in? Can it be just part of your life before, after, during? Does it have to be at a specific point?
So you can start acupuncture at absolutely any time, but there is a preferable time, and that is ideally in the 4 months leading up to IVF or 4 months in the lead up to when you're going to try naturally. And the reason for that is because the body tends to work in 3 to 4 month cycles in terms of hormone regulation. So we know that when an egg is maturing in the follicle, it takes 3 to 4 months to get to that stage. So anything that we do within that time frame will influence the quality of the egg. So if someone was to contact me 4 or 5 weeks before their IVF or before they wanted to start trying, I would say absolutely it's fine. There's so many other benefits. The only thing that we wouldn't be able to do in that time frame, we would be improving the egg quality, but we wouldn't be giving it the full 120 days to support the quality of the egg in the natural process. But it will obviously still help, but we do just ideally need the full 4 months prior. But there's other ways in which it will help. It will help to regulate your nervous system, help to regulate cortisol, can support estrogen and progesterone, improve blood flow to the ovaries, improve the lining of the womb, improve egg quality. There's so many benefits to acupuncture. But if I was going to say to anyone to get it to start, then try and start 4 months before. If you can't, then it's fine. You will totally still get benefits. It's just that's the best possible outcome.
Yeah, and it's great transparency there. And I suppose that when a patient comes to your clinic, it's having that education as well to say where are you on your journey, and and you can understand that cycle and the benefits during the cycle depending on where you are, I suppose.
Yeah.
So the procedure itself, can we talk a little bit about that? Does it hurt? What does that involve? How long does it take? That kind of thing.
So when someone comes in, I'll have a quick chat with them. We'll get them on the bed and a follow-up session, and it'll probably take me about 5 minutes to needle them up. I probably use anywhere between 8 to 12 needles. There are different modalities and how many needles we would use, but with the kind of treatment that I do, we use around 8 to 12 needles. I don't think it hurts at all. I have had patients that have come and have said that they've had pain in the past, and my question is always, what type of acupuncture did you have? Because there are different forms and modalities, like dry needling, for example, that a physio may do. That is not the same type of acupuncture that we would do at Juniper at my clinic. We're not basically going very, very deep into the muscle like they would be in that kind of treatment. And if they have had it with a physio or possibly a GP, sometimes they may be trained in dry needling. That can be more painful. But the kind of acupuncture that we do is not painful and shouldn't necessarily be very painful. You might feel something, but it shouldn't be pain.
Okay. And how long are the needles in for? How long does it last?
So you'll have the needles in approximately anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes. It depends on the person and how they're presenting, but that's kind of a good average for somebody.
Okay. And how often do you normally see a patient? Is it weekly, bi-weekly?
I normally see my patients weekly just so that I can work with the hormones in each phase of the menstrual cycle, because they are changing from week to week. Yeah. And then if someone's cycle is irregular, then that's even more important, because we want to try and bring that cycle to a more regular standpoint.
Yeah. Amazing. So trying to conceive, a fertility journey, it's a huge emotional one. It can sometimes involve invisible loss. We were talking on a podcast a couple of weeks ago about invisible loss and what that looks like, and sometimes when you're in the depths of infertility, you do feel like you've lost something. You've lost a natural way to conceive, a natural opportunity, probably friends, family around you all having children, and there can be a lot of emotional feelings towards that, including anger and upset. Does acupuncture have any impact on the emotional side? I know it can balance hormones, but can it help with regulating emotions? I know you touched upon stress before.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I did fertility, actually, I used to treat a lot of men who had PTSD that had come out of the army.
Oh, wow.
And it was extremely powerful for that.
Wow.
There was one guy who was having seizures as well, and he wasn't able to drive, and he was able to get his license back after regular acupuncture because he had no seizures for a year, and his emotional regulation and his symptoms from his PTSD rapidly improved. So yeah, absolutely, there is a huge benefit for emotional regulation. We do indirectly treat the emotions in Chinese medicine, so we may not directly talk about them, but anything that we do in treatment is actually regulating the organ systems, which in turn regulates someone's emotions.
Okay. And do you see a lot of patients post-fertility then? Because, fertility treatment doesn't always end with a baby. And as a woman, we have a life to live after our fertility journey, whether that's with a baby or not. So do you see a lot of patients to deal with sort of the aftermaths of that?
So I don't personally see those women. I will generally be treating women who are currently on the journey. However, my clinic does support fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and those who have been through loss. Okay. We do have a practitioner, Gaynor, who is fabulous, and she is trauma trained. So anyone that does need the extra support, whether they've had a baby and had early neonatal loss, or whether they have had a miscarriage first, second, third trimester, or whether they're still on their journey and they've still not got that baby in their arms, Gaynor, who works as part of the team, is someone that we would refer to, and she really helps support women with that, and couples as well.
Yeah, amazing. And we touched upon before around food therapy and lifestyle. How does that fit in with acupuncture?
So Chinese medicine food therapy looks at food completely differently. Lots of people find this fascinating when I explain, but in Western medicine you've got Western nutrition, you've got fats, carbs, proteins, and everyone knows about those, but Chinese medicine food therapy is a bit different. So we look at foods thermogenically instead, so the temperature of the foods. So we've got hot, warm, neutral, cool and cold. Okay. So each food that you eat actually falls into one of those categories. So when you come for an initial consultation, you will fall mostly into one of those, or you might have one or two at the same time. We see a lot of people with dampness in Chinese medicine. So someone with dampness may have PCOS, an excessive amount of cysts on the ovaries, or they may have sinus congestion, phlegm, things like that, or water retention, edema. That's kind of classed as dampness in Chinese medicine. So we would want to advise you to have foods that would help to clear, drain and move that dampness. Whereas if you have food which is very cold and you're living off yogurts and smoothies, that's actually going to contribute and exacerbate dampness-like symptoms, even though that food is healthy. So we don't necessarily look at food as healthy or unhealthy. We look at the thermogenic property and how that might balance the body. It's something that you do intuitively when you go on holiday. So if you go to a hot country, you naturally crave cooler foods like a salad or, colder
Ice
drinks.
cream.
And then when you're in a really cold country, you crave more stodgy and warm food. So it's something that we intuitively do. But I think in Western culture, we have been driven that certain foods are healthy, certain foods are unhealthy, and to live off certain foods all the time, whereas that's not really the way we approach it in Chinese medicine.
Okay, and is this part of your acupuncture appointments, or is this like an additional service?
So as part of the consultation, we will discuss this, and then in our follow-up and throughout the ongoing sessions, we will advise on foods that would be best for your constitution.
Amazing. So in your introduction, gleaming introduction when we started this episode, I mentioned that you also provide a lot of patient education, a lot of online resources that are all really affordable as well, which is a breath of fresh air to see. You're based in Stockton Heath in Cheshire, but for all our listeners that are throughout the UK that probably can't travel to the clinic, how can you support them, and what kind of resources do you have on offer on your website?
So one of the biggest things I see in clinic is low progesterone. So I had to make something that could support women globally to support this, because I feel like it's a pandemic in itself, and progesterone is one of those hormones that it's not just for fertility, it is for health as well. So when that is low, it can have a massive impact on our physical and mental well-being. And most of the time this will show up in the luteal phase. So I created a guide, and this talks you through what progesterone is, how you track progesterone, what tests you would need to get in order to understand why your progesterone might be low, what to do based on the results once you get those tests, certain foods, meal plans, even teas that can help, and possible supplements that could support you based on the results that you get back from your tests. So that's one of the most popular ones, just because so many women are low in progesterone, but I do have a few others. So I have a male fertility guide, because men are 50% of the equation, which is coming more to light now, which is great. And that talks about the different parameters of a semen analysis, such as the count, morphology, motility, and even something called DNA fragmentation, which is where the sperm can be damaged genetically. And it talks about those different parameters and how you can support that. And I then have one for IVF, which is if women are going for IVF often, either they feel really excited or really nervous, and in both of those they may not just ask the right questions. So I have a guide which I can't remember how many questions are in there now, but it's a bit like a notebook of the questions to ask when you first go to your fertility clinic, so that you can maximise that time with your consultant, and also know if that clinic is potentially right for you, because not every clinic works the same way. So they're three of the most popular guides. I do have a few others, but they're probably the most popular ones.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Kate, for joining us today, and thank you for all the incredible work that you do in this field. For those listening, where can we find you? Where are you most active?
So Instagram, I will only do Instagram at the moment, just because it takes so much time, as you probably know. So you can find me at the Cheshire Acupuncturist on Instagram. The clinic is the Juniper Clinic, if you want to follow the clinic as well. And then there is a website for Juniper Clinic, which is juniperclinic.co.uk. And then for myself personally, it's CheshireAcupuncturist.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us, and good luck with everything. I know you've got a lot on this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.